At Delaware Orthopedic Specialists, you're never left in the dark. Not only are they the only fellowship-trained surgery center here in the state of Delaware, all of their providers are also specialists, which means that they're focusing on each and every part of the body specifically, so that when you come in with knee pain, you're getting a doctor specifically devoted to that. Wrist pain, wrist doctor, foot pain, foot doctor, so on and so forth. Why would you go anywhere where you're just going to get a general doctor that knows overall body when you can get somebody that knows the ins and outs of your exact injury? They're going to hold your hand and walk you through each and every step of the process so that you won't have any questions and you'll know exactly what you should be expecting. My family and friends trust DOS, and you should too. Give them a call at 302-655-9494 or head on over to delortho.com. Let them know that Talkin 215 sent you. And after they give you phenomenal care, head on over to Google, give them a great review.
Welcome to Talkin 215, your go-to podcast for everything you need to know about Philly sports. Whether you bleed green, trust the process, fly with the Flyers, or fight with the Fightins, this is the place where we break down Broad Street. Jake, Sean, and Joey deep dive into the heart of Philly sports culture, breaking down games, roster moves, and sharing the stories that make the 215 truly legendary. So grab a cheesesteak, settle in, and let's get to Talkin 215.
Greetings and welcome to the Week 1 post-game production. Week 1 in the books. I am going to be your host today, Sean. With me today, I got Coach and Tommy Stakes. Fellas, how do we feel after Week 1?
Unbelievable relief after the game ended. It was like one of those games where I almost did get a little emotional. It's probably because I had a couple cocktails. But other than that, the relief I felt after winning that game was one of those like weight off my shoulders kind of feelings where I just felt like we got out of there. It was one of the toss-up games on our schedule. That opponent itself, and then also the game being in Brazil, all that. So I just feel like getting that win was like, man, it felt good. If it was that was all that mattered to me, was getting the win. Like how mistakes, we'll get into all the game and all of that, but getting the win was like, as if it's not every week, but even more, it was the number one thing. Just get the win, and they did it.
Yeah, I'm at a point now in my football watching career, in my football fandom career, to where I care about two things: the score at the end of the game, a win, and no major injuries. As long as we come away healthy and with a dub, this isn't college football, the old BCS where style points matter, where, you're playing Western Idaho and you need to win by 50 so that you go up in the BCS rankings. No, a win is a win in this league, and they're hard to come by. They're extremely hard to come by. So I'm feeling great. I don't care if it was ugly, pretty. A win is a win, and you beat an NFC opponent in foreign territory, literally and figuratively. I mean, just in the worst conditions. You find out your starting corner, his hand is messed up on the plane. Your potential starting linebacker didn't make the trip, and you have two new coordinators, and you're playing overseas the way you ended your season last year and the way they ended their season last year. You can't be anything but happy with the way this happened.
I'm not going to lie. Tom, I was the complete opposite. Maybe it was just because we were hot off the tails of saying this team's going to go 15-2. Maybe I was just sniffing the Eagles' farts a little too well. I wasn't stressed at all. Even we were down what felt like most of the game. I was just like, oh, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time till we start clicking. This offense looks like it's running in full steam. This defense is making plays on the ball. Like, it was just a matter of time. I'm surprised we only won by 5. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. This team was handling business. We weren't even playing particularly well, but it just seemed like the level and talent, even from playing against the Packers, which were a consensus, top 3, top 5, 6 team in the NFL, still probably going to be a pretty good team. But I just felt like the talent level, it was just that whole last, watching the first 11 games last year, where it's like these guys are just so much better as football players, as athletes. Yeah. I was chilling, and I never chill. Wow. Maybe I'm just turning over a new leaf. I don't know.
You know what? It's crazy because Joey pointed out a lot of things that people didn't ever talk about. And, you talked about how you were confident the whole time. It did feel like the people were really harping on like how poorly the Eagles play, but I think like anyone's week one, you can come out of this game with positives and negatives. I mean, we have things to work on and teach and learn from, and that's what I love about the journey. And then you also have things that you celebrate and you're happy for, and that's also a journey because you can't just assume like Zach Baum played really well, he's definitely going to do it again. Like you have to be ready for him maybe not playing so well and then somebody else stepping up, and that's what it is. It's the ultimate team sport. So I hope everything keeps going forward and progressing. But man, I'll tell you what, last year's week one, it was a different feeling. We went up early. It was like, oh, we're going to coast. This is the best team in the league. And then they like didn't. And it was like, after that game, I was like, I'm happy we won, but that was kind of like dry. Like that felt, and it was a 5-point win on the road against New England, right? So this year, I feel so much better. Like, I just feel like that, like we played poorly, but like we saw so many flashes and we still put up 34 points and we still moved the ball, got in scoring range. So night and day difference from last year's season opener. What do you guys think of that specifically? Like, do you remember how you felt after last year?
Yeah, if you remember last year, Slate started off the game with a pick six. We went up, I think, 10-0. It was rainy conditions in New England. Matt Jones looked horrible, and you're like, man, I'm texting all my buddies, talking shit, like I'm feeling real good. We're about to win like 30-6. Yeah. And then, like you said, we just kind of got complacent. The plays were predictable. Soon you had 2, 3 3-and-outs in a row, and New England got a couple penalties, got back in the game. And next thing you know, you're like, this I don't like the way this is feeling. Look, as a fan, to me personally, I don't know about you guys, there's no better feeling than your team already got a win on a Thursday night, or your team has a game on Monday night, and you're sitting back watching Sunday Red Zone, just carefree, stress-free football, watching everybody. And I don't know about you guys, but I left that win feeling a little bit like, oh, man, we got some things to clean up. I caught a lot of heat on Twitter because I said Jalen Hurts played below average. He played bad, which I think he did, but I'll get to that in a second. But then looking around the league on Sunday, I was like, Tommy, you pointed out, I was like, I feel a lot better about this Eagles team, because if you look around, that week one rust existed for every single team in the league. But guess what? Some of those teams weren't lucky enough to win with that rust. We were. So I think when you add all that up, boys, like 2 turnovers in the first 6 plays of the game and in your own territory, and you're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? We could have gone down 14-0 to start that game.
Last year, that's 14. Like last year's collapse. If it was the last 6 weeks, we're down 14-0 already, and we're getting no chance. We got no chance.
And guess what? You go down 14. You go down 14-0. You don't get to establish the run with Saquon. You don't get to see all like Saquon having 20, 21, 22 carries and what he's able to do opening up the pass game. Yeah, as a result. And I think the biggest takeaway from this, and great segue, Tom, is this week one, you have Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio as your 2 new coordinators. We don't win this game without these 2 new coordinators. If we would have started this game the way we did this game, if we would have started it last year as coordinators. If you don't have those 2 guys, Fangio buckled down, called the right plays, held them to 6 points on those 2 turnovers. And then Kellen Moore, we'll get into it in this episode, absolutely in his bag. So the way I look at it, you didn't play your best football and still beat one of the best teams in the NFL. You got to be happy.
Listen, I'll tell you what, a big reason why I was feeling pretty good for just about most of the game, really after those first 2 defensive stops, is because most of the questions that I had going into the season were being answered. Okay. First off, the defense as a whole, how's it going to hold up? Right. You just talked about it. The 2 turnovers. Okay. That I kind of accredited it to a wonky, rusty week one, for better or for worse. Right. Not saying that was totally right, but that was my mindset at the time. When we held them to 3 points each time, I thought, man, we got ourselves a coordinator. Like this defense looks so much better than I thought it was going to look week one. Right. Just a bit more specifically, the linebackers. How are the linebackers going to look? Right. I thought Nakobe lost a handful of times, but other than that, played fantastically. Right. Zach Baun. Okay. Saquon. More like Zach Bald, okay? How about that? Playing his ass off, all right? We might not have a guy for all 17 games, but we got a guy right now, okay? And a second member on defense. How well is Quinyon Mitchell going to play right away? Okay, boom, lights out. Okay, kid's a dog, right? It looked like he was playing as like an all Madden, like AI character in Madden, right? Just automatically, wherever you go, I go, champ. Okay, wherever you go, I go. Right. So that on defense, my questions were pretty much solved, right? And then on offense, what's Kellen Moore's offense going to look like? It didn't even matter what the rest of the offense looked like. Just watching Devonte Smith just work every single bit of the field and just reminded me of him at Alabama. Like, I don't know. I felt like a kid at heart. I was in my 30s when he was at Alabama. I was not a kid, but I felt giddy knowing that he's going to be moving around all over the place. He looks so good out in the open field, and we got a coordinator that's going to do just that. And then Saquon was being Saquon. The line was being the line. Mekhi Becton, right? Questions about him. He goes ahead and has probably, I don't know, was it his best game in his career? Probably. Damn close to it.
Awesome.
That looked like his natural position. So right then and there, all those questions I had leading up to week 1, they were solved. Like, I felt like we could have almost, I'm not going to say I would have been happy if we lost, but I would have felt pretty encouraged if it was a close game that we had lost and we won. Boom. I'm like you said, Coach, I'm watching Red Zone on Sunday just with my feet up with a drink in my hand, just relaxing because I know we got this.
Yeah. No, I mean, doesn't it make you guys feel good to know that, like, the biggest thing we have to worry about is, like, Jalen Hurts cleaning it up? Like, I'm like, yeah, 2 decisions, like, come on, man, it's Jalen Hurts. Like, he's probably watching film right now. So it's like, he'll be fine. And basically, like, you clean that up, and I feel like we can really get after the Falcons in this game coming up. I've been telling people it's the mobility of the quarterback. I thought Jordan Love, by the way, he can stay on the Packers for a bit. I mean, think about being a Packers fan. They kind of had a lot of questions answered for them too. Unfortunate injury at the end, but till that point, Jordan Love had looked every bit of a franchise quarterback. And I was saying, I want to fraud check this team. I want to see a reality check. He's the real deal. And like, to me, I believe in him, and I believed in him last year. I think he's getting a little bit of hype, and you need to let him grow, and hopefully he gets healthy. But he really gave our defense fits, stepping up in the pocket and being able to move and make throws downfield. And I don't think Kirk Cousins has that in him. And I give our defense credit for hanging in there as long as they did against Jordan Love, and really just a couple back-breaking plays. Other than that, they were really active up front, and they got him off his spot. And not every quarterback can move that way and throw on the run like that. So that's one of the big things I was encouraged by. We talked a lot about the D line in the preseason and the edge rushers and the D tackles, and how there's no Fletcher Cox anymore. Graham's getting up there in age. Reddick's gone. I thought they were active enough for me to say negative plays are going to come. Like, those things are going to come. And I feel like that Jordan Love moving and the field being bad really contributed to, like, us not finishing as much as we probably will. And that's what I'm looking forward to in this next game.
Sean, with your third point about Quinyon Mitchell, what I thought was impressive that, kind of, I hope doesn't fall under the radar here, but you guys got to remember, for the last 2-3 weeks straight, he was practicing in the slot, in the nickel.
Yep.
In the slot, in the nickel, all those defensive calls, what they are, guarding the slot receiver, handling the motion, everything like that. And then 1 or 2 days before the game, we find out that Rodgers' hand is going to force him to be out of the game. And so now Quinyon is starting on the outside.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother responsibility. I know he played it primarily in college. I know that's what he was drafted as, but when you go into game week game plan prepping for a certain position and the calls and everything, for Vic Fangio to say, and I think a lot of fans wanting Keely Ringo in there, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, like, I think the fans are higher on Keely Ringo than maybe the Eagles are, because he's had multiple opportunities, and it's like,
yeah,
we're taking the guy that's practicing the slot all week, a rookie, and we're putting him out there in his first game ever in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the biggest vote of confidence I've seen the Eagles have in a rookie in a long time. I know Jalen Carter obviously was thrust in there and produced, but corner is one of the toughest positions in this sport to play. And you went from practicing the entire game plan against this high-powered offense, like Tommy said, in Jordan Love, your first game ever. And we say, hey, kid, you're starting on the outside. And not only do you start on the outside, you act like you belong, You play like you belong. And the act insulted when they throw your way. To act like, how dare you, Christian Watson, even attempt to catch this ball? What is wrong with you? Are you out of your mind? Did you not watch tape on me? You know who I am. That got me going so much because it's rare that a corner outside of like Sauce and Surtain, who are generational, right, possesses that type of ability, backs it up. And you could tell Fangio saw that and was like, no, that's my starting corner right there. So that just got me so elated because I feel like we've been missing that for a long time.
Yeah. No, there was options at corner. The Keely Ringo, like you said, that's what I thought they were going to do. I mean, I thought when I heard it, what changed my mind on that situation was when Vic Fangio came out and said he's going to play every snap. And when Rodgers was out, I was like, all right, Fangio, you're supposed to be Mr. Tell It How It Is, right? So show me now. And he did, and he put him out there, and he played his ass off, man. I don't know. Do you guys think Isaiah Rodgers gets that job, or do you think you start with him out there and try to work? Because the problem now, I feel, is that Devonte Maddox is not who he once was, and that's a problem. And we need Cooper DeJean to get up to speed, or we need Quinion to move there, or we need Isaiah Rodgers to move there, or we need Keely. I don't think Devonte Maddox is going to be the guy. I think he's another backup kind of safety like James Bradbury is. So what do you guys think about Isaiah coming back? What do we do?
Well, first, I'm not all that surprised that Devonte looked as bad as he did. I mean, this is a guy that was trying out for safety, right? Yeah. I mean, that's just please let me keep my job. Yeah. That's the move, right?
They want him to be good, but he's not.
Right. And it's only a matter of a couple games before he gets hurt anyways. So, I mean, that's going to be the question, right? You got to figure up until this point, if Isaiah Rodgers had looked like the starter on the outside, just how good is Isaiah Rodgers going to be? Right? That because you have to throw him back out there. You have to believe that Q is going to look at least as good against a slot, a third quarter wide receiver. So I'd like to see Isaiah Rodgers on the outside. I'd like to see Q move to the inside. Set it, forget it. Just, leave him out there until Slay starts to trend downwards, because even he seemed like he had a fantastic game.
Well, he's great. I mean, he's going to be what he's going to be. I feel like this is a great problem to have because of matchups. And I mean, dictating matchups is a huge thing in the NFL. It's the name of the game. It's a game of matchups. So if you have a bunch of different corners that you can match up with, like if CeeDee Lamb is playing a lot in the slot, just pick who you want to go on him because everyone else can play basically everywhere else. I think it's a great problem to have. You can even bring CJ Gardner-Johnson down to play some slot reps against tight ends and maybe even some receivers as well. Like I feel like the versatility of the secondary really is going to shine this year. And it's exactly what we had in 2022 when we went to the Super Bowl. We were able to dictate so many matchups. And I feel like if we get pressure, we're active up front, and we have this versatile secondary, I feel like our defense is going to be a lot better than maybe even Eagles fans thought it would be, honestly. And I'm really excited to see these guys.
I look at with Rodgers potentially coming back and trying to answer that question. I think Vic Fangio is a put your best guys out there and just fit it however you can. You kind of look at the NBA, how they used to have like, oh, I need a 6'2" point guard with handles. He's my point guard. And then I need a guy who's a spot-up shooter. He's my two guard. And then the NBA slowly just said, I'm going to put my four best players on the court and then a big, and that's how it was. Everybody needs to be able to shoot. Everybody needs to be able to handle the ball. Everybody needs to be able to play defense. And I think that's what you're going to see out of this Fangio defense.
Are becoming in the NFL, I think. It's not even about like having a safety and it's like, remember it was free safety, strong safety. Now it's just like safeties. And now it's like dime linebacker is like a big position now where it's just an extra DB. So, I don't think
that's why a guy that I always hate and pick on, Jamal Adams, is kind of being phased out of the league because he was a strong safety, cosplaying back there in a two deep, not being able to cover people. And if you look at it, I think you put those three there, Slay, Rodgers, and Q, and you figure it out. When you put, and in the NFL now, there's so many condensed splits. People are putting their best receivers in the slot. They're putting them in motion. You look at San Fran, you look at Dallas, you look at Green Bay, you look at all these teams that use motion. So what is the point of saying Q plays inside and Rodgers plays outside? Right. you're in man, they're going to have to follow their guy wherever he goes anyway, or you're going to have to split time. And if we have Drake London, who's 6'6" on the outside, I'd rather have Q on him than Rodgers on him. So you're going to be looking at a matchup-based defense. And I think Fangio is so great now that the NFL is changing and they're trying to do all these move your best guys. Before, you had your X and you had your Z, and you knew they were lining up on the outside, and then you had a short, shifty receiver in the middle. That was it. That was offense. But these offense coordinators are so smart, so talented. They understand matchups. So why not just put those best three out there? They're going to have to be in the slot at some point or another. They're going to have to be outside at some point or another. And I think Fangio is going to do that with those three.
Your value is going to be based on, in the NFL, this is true for pretty much anything, your value is based on how many positions you can play. Like, how much can you do? How much information can you process? I mean, on the O-line, backup O-linemen keep their jobs if they can play guard and tackle over just being able to play one. Or remember Andre Dillard, he could only play left tackle. So it was like, well, what value are you to us then? Because if somebody gets hurt on the right side, you can't play. So that's always going to create value. Same thing with the NBA, like we were talking about. So it's like, the more you can do, the more you'll play. And that's why I think Quinyon Mitchell is always going to be on the field, because he can play in it. Like, we're in this. I got to go in the slot. All right, cool. I can excel at that. I'm on the outside. I can excel at that. So he's always going to have the trust of Fangio. So hopefully Rodgers can kind of figure out how to do the same thing. I know Slay, he followed CeeDee Lamb last year when we needed him to, because we were getting
Justin Jefferson. He followed too. That one game he locked him up.
And they go wherever. So he can have guys follow guys. He can line up guys, be versatile, all that, bring guys down from safety. Like, I think CJ, he was a nickel before when he was on New Orleans and Little in college. So it's like he can match up. And then I think, honestly, I want to get your guys' opinion on Reed Blankenship. I mean, I've always been saying, like, is he good or not? I think he's good. I'm ready to say he's good. Like, I don't know how else to say, honestly, because I've been debating. What do you guys think of Reed? Is he legit, or like, I can't tell? I think he's good now.
Listen, I just wanted to follow up on that last Fangio post about being kind of a hybrid athlete. He made sure that CJ was back on this team. He owes no affiliation to him. He was not on the team before, right? Yeah. Under Vic Fangio. You go out and get a guy like Cooper DeJean with his multi positional ability, right? So I'm excited to see how week to week how these kind of roles change, right? Because I'm totally on board with you guys. I think you're going to see a little something every single week. Keep the offenses guessing. It just kind of goes into just trying to hide what your coverages are, and I'm just excited to see it. But yeah, to your point, Tom, I was also a little skeptical of Blankenship. Right? Yeah. Is he a product of the rest of this defense where you've got three solid guys and then the fourth one is just kind of masked by their ability? There's got to be a reason why this kid wasn't even drafted, but he looks very comfortable. He looks very comfortable back there. Yeah. He's making plays on the ball. The guy is like a pin miss back there. He's really playing his ass off, and it's no longer, he's good for an undrafted free agent. Right. He's good for a white safety. No, he's good for a football player, for a starting caliber player right now. Yeah. I've been skeptical, but I at this point I'm sold. He's set him, forget him, start him back there. Don't worry about him.
Yeah, you really, like, you can see he works and it's working out for him. Like, you see some players, like, they don't really get, like, you're like, he's okay, and then you're like, he's still okay. Like, every time I see him play, I'm like more and more like, damn, like, he just makes plays. He's good, like, every game. So now that I'm even debating it, it's like, maybe he just is. Like, so that's kind of how I became with this over time. Like, like you said, is he a product of guys getting pressure and things like that? But it almost seems like he's going from kind of being benefiting off of that stuff to being like a force out there. Like, I feel like he's popping out more. And I felt like that last season as the season progressed, and hopefully we just keep seeing it. I'm very high on the secondary. I mean, I think it's just night and day difference, and Fangio has a lot to do with that for sure. Identifying guys and going to get them.
I just love seeing him crash the box. Like he just targets where the ball is going, where the quarterback's eyes are looking, the ball carrier. He runs, he reacts like a linebacker. Like when you talk about instincts making a really good linebacker, like the more what pops on tape for him are his instincts. Like the guy just wants to destroy whoever has the ball, or just really he just knows where that ball is going. I think he's done a fantastic job of getting smarter over the last couple of years. And he's probably gonna be really, really damn good this season.
Yeah, and my bad. One more thing, you said earlier, Nakobe looked like lost on a few plays, and I'm sure that's going to happen a lot. I'm sure it's going to happen to Reed. I'm sure it's going to happen to guys, CJ. But you know what? I can live with it because it's based on their like ability to be aggressive and instinctively go to the ball and get the ball. And sometimes they're going to get sucked in on like a play action fake, and they're going to have a guy run behind them and. That stuff happens. I saw some clips today going around like, oh, Nakobe bit on this play action and a guy got behind him. It's like, dude, it's football. Like, just like we say Kellen Moore, like, schemes people up. Like, people are going to do that to us, too. Like, we're not going to be perfect. So I was, really encouraged. And, I'm not saying these guys are all Pro Bowl level guys, pumping the brakes on that and everything. But I'm understanding that mistakes will happen, and it'll only make them better, I think. And we're just getting started with some of these guys. I'm excited for their careers. It's really just blossoming, and we're seeing it happen in live time.
Yeah, I think Reed is good. I do. Mm-hmm. I was skeptical at first, too, like I'm sure everybody else was. But it's almost like when people in the secondary got hurt last year, and this guy was in, this guy was out, whatever the case was, he was like the one mainstay where I was like, okay, I trust this guy to know his assignments and do his job. To me, he reminds me of like the TJ Edwards version of a safety, right? Yeah. Never going to get talked about in the media as being one of the top guys, but I know on every single play, this person is not going to mess up their assignment by peeking in the backfield, not going to mess up their assignment by not having the right calls or the right checks or whatever it is. And then they're going to show you that the combine doesn't matter when you study film and you have instincts and you have a nose for the football. Mm-hmm. That's what he's going to do. And to me, he's like a TJ Edwards at safety. The 2 interceptions he's had against Green Bay, one against Rodgers and now one against Jordan Love, he baited from a robber position at safety on both over routes where it could have been a catch. It could have not been, had he not been there. But the quarterback doesn't throw an over route across the middle if a safety's lurking there because they know what a robber is. And he still allowed 2 Pro Bowl caliber, 1 Hall of Famer quarterback to make that throw and to fool them. And I just think when you see stuff like that, you have to be encouraged. These aren't like tipped interceptions or receiver stopped his route and went right to him. Right. This is film study, instincts, and a nose for the ball. And I think when you add all those up, you get a really good football player. So will he ever be talked about amongst the all-pros or the Pro Bowlers? Probably not. That's more of like a popularity media contest. But if you're an Eagles fan, you got to be happy with what you got to say.
Yeah, these guys matter. These like role player type guys, not just household names and all pro level guys, and it really does. You mentioned the combine. It's really separated by athleticism. Like that's why he wasn't drafted so high because he's not seen as like a type A athlete. You know what I mean? But he's like you said, hustles to the ball, watches film. And you know what else? It's funny. Some guys just have a knack to like make the play when you need it. And in that game against Green Bay on Friday night, he made that play, that interception he got when we needed it so bad. I think we had just punted the ball and we had a chance to go down and we couldn't. So we punted and he comes up with that interception. We might have scored. I don't even remember. The whole game was a blur. I'd have to go back, but we needed that. That was a very big moment in the game for him to go. And I think we took the lead on the next touchdown. So that was the go ahead TD. So, and then last year, and he had a game where we were playing Washington and we were in Washington and he came up with a huge interception at the end of the game when we started making our comeback. And, it just feels like he's one of those guys, one of those fan favorites. It's going to have a lot of like legendary moments in Philly and be a really good Philly player. But like you said, yeah, not an all pro level guy, and that's okay. I think he's a good player. And couldn't be happier with him.
I mean, I feel like especially last year, like his superpower was like preventing like a huge play, like a huge run. He'd be the last guy.
Remember when when I think it was McLaurin like stepped on his arm in Washington and it kept it off the field and dude, he is, I'm telling you, he's like that goofy clutch, like he's like the Victorino type, like he'll hit a grand slam, you know what I mean? He'll make some crazy catch or something and pump everyone up. Like he's that kind of guy. And also just a pretty like darn good player, but not going to be like a Dawkins, you know what I mean? Like not that level, but I feel like he could be one of those, like, if we win the Super Bowl, he's like one of those guys that you're like the Reed Blankenship type guy, you know, that you needed, you know what I mean? So it's
yeah. Every Super Bowl winner's got their unsung heroes. Every Super Bowl winning team has their own Corey Clement, you know, like that. Yep. He could be that just on defense, but we're going to move it over to offense. Okay. Jalen obviously had a couple miscues. Guys, are we worried about this, or is this just week one rust coming from Jalen?
I think he's I'll say I don't have much to say on it, honestly, because I kind of mentioned before, it's a good problem when your hardworking quarterback that you trust is doing this, stumbling over some of these mistakes early on. I'd rather him get him out early, honestly, too. So he's got to be more careful with the ball. It'll be alarming if it keeps going, but I'm not gonna worry right now. I think it's just him learning this new offense, trying to wrap his head around things, and also trying to make plays and win, and feeling a little bit of pressure from how things ended. But getting that first win, I feel like it's like, you're not going to deal with crowd noise at home on Monday night. They are. I think all the pressures just take a deep breath and get it done. So I think as the season goes on, he'll settle down.
So they asked Sirianni, what did you say to Jalen after those 2 interceptions? And he said nothing. And they were like, why? The follow-up was like, why didn't you say anything to him? He's like, when you have those type of interceptions, there's nothing that needs to be said. It wasn't a misread. It wasn't, not on the right page. It wasn't forcing it. And when I played ball, we had kind of like an acronym, and it was LOM equals LOL. It's late over the middle is laugh out loud because you're going to be on the bench. A coach will never care if you throw across the middle in traffic, if you throw a 50-50 ball to give your guy a chance, if you're scrambling and you're just trying to make a play. Those type of things happen. But the one thing they'll never, ever, ever want is you cannot be late over the middle. And both of his interceptions were. So Sirianni said, I didn't need to tell him anything. He knows it. That's not a teaching moment. Me going over there is not going to change anything for the next drive, the next play. He knew what he had to do. So I'm not concerned from that standpoint. Again, I watched every football game almost this past weekend, and I saw Joe Burrow look horrific. I saw the quarterback in Cleveland, who I'm not going to name his name, just look like the worst quarterback I've ever seen, and he's guaranteed $250 million. I didn't see any quarterback like wow me, not even Mahomes, like really wow me. And when you take into account, I don't want to be an excuse guy, but I'm really getting sick and tired of field conditions that aren't conducive to the best product of football that you could have. When you take into account that, you take into account your first game under a new offensive coordinator, none of that really mattered because Jalen knew those balls in a dome with a coordinator I've had with for 4 years, in perfect conditions, game 8 versus game 1, he doesn't need to throw. So I'm not really concerned about that. I chalk it up to rust. I know what he can be. And if you go back and look at the 2 touchdowns he threw, the deep one to AJ and the one to Saquon, that's what you should be able to hang your hat on is absolute dots in tight coverage when you needed them the most, in the pocket throws and a handle on this new offense. Look, turnovers are going to happen, right? He knows it. And I guarantee you, I'd rather have him get those out of the way in week 1 in Brazil with a win than have to, he hasn't thrown an interception in 6 straight games and be hesitant with the ball, checking down. Nah, he's going to be just fine.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah, so I felt that, again, I thought it was mostly a bit of getting used to the new system, probably not knowing where guys were supposed to be, especially his second and third read, right? Which, again, just feels like repetition, right? Now, the one hang-up I did have is when he's trying to run. Where is the mystique, the allure of Jalen Hurts scrambling here? Like, I feel like he's reluctant to run, and when he does, he doesn't look particularly fast. He had one play where he ran and drove through a would-be tackler for a first down, and it felt like the first time in forever, but it also felt like that was the only time that game where he had to turn it on. He feels like he rushes kind of half-assed. Like he really wants the play to end, for lack of a better way to express it. And that's really the only hang up that I feel like I have of him moving forward. Like, just don't even try. Just throw it out of bounds. I don't want you getting hurt if you're just going to half-ass a 3-yard run and then slide it at half speed. So if I had any sort of knock on him after 1 week, again, take that with as much of a grain of salt as you like. You got to make a decision, man. Are you going to be aggressively scrambling and going for some of these gains, or are we just going to throw it away and live to fight another down?
Yeah, I think that there's one reason that you've seen a change in him from that first couple years and the last 2 years. And it's not an injury. It's not that he's not as athletic anymore. Maybe a little bit, but not too much. It's nothing like that. It's just his contract, and he's paid a lot of money, and he wants to be on the field. He's not looking to run with force unless he has to. And those big moments, you know what I mean? That was a big first down that he converted. You'll have a couple of those, but he's working to become a passer, a more throwing kind of core. I mean, you saw a designed run. You saw I think it was 1 or 2 designed runs in that game, but it's a lot less than 2021 and 2022. And they're protecting their investment. There's other guys. I honestly, you know what else was a crazy thing is that the tush push didn't really look that good. And you, by the end of the game, I'm like, give the ball to Saquon Barkley. Like, the guy is a tank back there. So I think we're becoming a little bit of a different team, and that's not a bad thing. But I think he'll use his legs when he needs to and at opportune times. But I don't think it's ever going to be 130 yards on the ground from Jalen Hurts. Unless they're just letting him run free or something. But he's got to be a little smarter when he gets out of the pocket, not force anything, obviously, but I don't think we're going to see much dominant running from him. I think he's going to being taught to use his arm, use his head.
And look, I think the field conditions might have had a little bit of play there.
Yeah, that's true too.
I think with him running a little bit, I would have loved to see him have somewhat of a game. And Sean, I think you're kind of leaning this way too, like Lamar had on Thursday, where, man, we're struggling right now. Things aren't working. I know on 3rd and 4, if my first guy ain't there, I can get this 4 yards. I can run, use my legs, hit this 4 yards. Every time I run doesn't mean I have to take, a crucial hit. I could take a hit, intelligently and do that. And look, I was critical of him not using his legs too, but like you said, I drink during the games and, kind of get a little emotional before I watch the sober playback. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I need to delete some tweets.
You know what that sound is. That's the sound of summer, and there's no better way to kick off this summer season than with an ice-cold Dewey beer. Dewey Beer recently voted the #1 brew pub in the nation. The nation, #1 brew pub with locations in Delaware and even in Colorado, has some of the coldest, crispest, most delicious beer I have ever tasted. And you're going to be able to get it for free at the Talkin 215 free beer Phillies tailgates. We're always advertising them on our social media, but enough about that. Let's talk about Dewey for a little bit. Locally owned and operated, they use only the finest ingredients and go through a painstaking process to make sure that the best product possible is in that can, and you need that can in your hand. Head on over to deweybeerco.com to see where Dewey is sold near you and get yourself some of the delicious El Trono, Swishy Pants, or any of their other incredible beers. Dewey Beer. Let's kick off summer right, folks.
I want to clarify what I said about Jalen Hurts, and I said I thought he played bad, but I think it's a good sign that I thought he played bad, but the Eagles still won. I think that's always great when you can have that. And people were saying, well, he had some great throws. Look at the throw to Saquon. Look at the yeah. I know he had some great throws. What I'm trying to say is, from a contextual standpoint, is, and I'll ask you all guys this, a yes or no question. Do we think Jalen Hurts is an MVP type player in the NFL? Yes or no?
Yeah, I do. I do think that. Yeah.
Yes. And what you're trying to say is that, he can play to here. Okay.
Yeah.
Because he played here and still won against a good Packers team. I think he has the potential to play up here. Right. His timing's a little better. He knows his reads a little better. Right. He just gels with this coordinator a little bit better. Dude, I mean, the sky is absolutely the limit. That's all we're trying to say. But I mean, it's Twitter. You know, people are committed to hearing you're wrong. We all know.
And I mean, if you look at around the league, if somebody like Mac Jones put up the Jalen Hurts stat line, you'd be like, wow, what a great game for Mac Jones. Yeah. For 240 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's awesome. But when my quarterback is Jalen Hurts and I hold him to this standard right here, and I see you have 2 late over the middle interceptions, and I see you have a fumble on the goal line and another dropped pick, I'm going to say that is a bad game to where I hold you as a standard. I put you at the Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson level. That's where I put you. And those guys get scrutinized and criticized for everything. So I expect you to have an amazing game. So that's why I think he played bad, ... what I should have put, based on those standards. The standards that we have for Jalen Hurts, I thought he played bad. That doesn't mean I think he's a bad player. But again, to summarize that whole point, how many teams in this league, in the NFL, can say our quarterback did not play to his standard, and yet we still beat another Super Bowl contender? How many people can say that?
Yeah, not many. That's the thing. We don't need Jalen Hurts to play at an MVP level every single week to win games, which is literally the best thing you can ask for, because you go around the league, like we just talked about on this entire episode, and you look at every quarterback and every team in general, you can, again, pick out, well, yeah, he had some bad throws. He had some bad plays. He had some bad decisions. And then he had some good, and he had some good. And every single team, every single quarterback, I feel, around the league. I mean, the one guy that comes to mind is Baker Mayfield. The guy went absolutely nuts against Washington. But I'm sure even in that game, what did he throw for, like two something and 4 touchdowns and no picks? I guarantee if I watch that back, I'm going to find 3 or 4 bad decisions that he made, regardless if it ended in a pick or not. That's just football. So I feel like even in a great game, you could say, there's things to work on. So he made a couple mistakes for sure. And like you said, it's not at the standard we're expecting. But there's going to be a handful of games like that this year, and we can still win those games. And then there's going to be a handful of games where Jalen goes nuts and he's the talk of the town. But guess what? If they don't win those games, no one's going to be talking about Jalen Hurts' stats after a loss. So we win the game and he played meh, then okay, cool. Well, I'm glad we just didn't lose. When you play bad and you lose, that's the worst. But no one cares about stats after a loss, and sometimes you dissect the win a little heavier than you should. So it is what it is. Week 1, like we've just said it. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. It's definitely expecting better though.
Well, I think the only hang up is because of the way the season went last year, right? Starting 10-1, but half the fan base was going, okay, but this is a shitty 10-1, and the other half is going, a shitty 10-1. Are you kidding me? And then it ended up actually being a pretty shitty 10-1. Like,
worst 10-1 ever.
But enough about who had a bad game. You know who had a good game? Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
That man is the real deal.
Oh, yeah. Everything we've heard, said,
should have had a 4-piece.
Yep. 5 maybe, honestly. But
it's as described and then some. This man, whenever Kenny Gainwell went into the game, I was like, dude, get him out. That's why we're worried about Saquon's durability. Every single time he had one. He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Let's give Kenny
all credit where it's due.
He caught a ball behind the line of scrimmage with 2 guys in his face and got a first down out of nothing. I was surprised.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will Shipley
watching them back-to-back plays, it was night and day for Saquon, man. He looked sharp. He looked agile, freakishly strong. I love it. And he's just juiced up. He's ready to be here. He loves it here.
Yeah. And doesn't he just look good in an Eagles uniform? I'm looking at pictures from after the game, and I'm like, this guy just looks like he's been here for years, like doing all the handshakes with the guys, and everyone's talking like, such great high praise for him. It just feels like he's just like meant to be an Eagle, and it's just so fun to watch. And he's every bit of the superstar that you saw in New York, man. It's a beautiful thing. It's like, this is like Saquon. Like, this isn't just some guy. Like, we're putting Saquon Barkley behind this O-line. It's going to be dangerous all year.
Not only that, like, I love how like on this show we can like break down stuff. We can get into the nitty gritty. We can get into the details because there's a lot of people on Twitter and social media that are just box score watchers, right? And they'll say, "Oh, Saquon had 3 touchdowns. He went off," and he did. But if you watch the game on his first touchdown run, the second touchdown he had, the burst just looked different than any running back that we've had back there. I'm talking about 0 to 100 burst. There was a hole maybe this big, and he went from juking in the backfield, stop-start, to just out of there. And there was another play later in the game. I think he had like a 30 or 40-yard run where there was nothing there. He bounced it back to the B gap, barely this much. And the next thing you know, he's the 30, the 40, the 50. And I'm like, what rocket is up his ass right now? And look, Miles Sanders, good running back for us. DeAndre Swift, good running back for us. Like even guys like Shady McCoy and Westbrook, they were shifty. They did great things. Love them to death. But I'm telling you, outside of the box score, it's those runs would have been 2 and 3 yard runs that he's making 15, 16, 17 yard runs just because he is so damn explosive. I couldn't believe – well, I could, but you kind of have your hater – glasses on when you're watching the Giants and the Cowboys. I'm never going to give him full credit, you know? So I'm like, Saquon, yeah, he's good, but is he really that good? But holy shit, man. Like, the burst, fellas. The burst is what was unreal to me.
Dude, he put Quay Walker on the ground on that first touchdown. Like, he hit him with, like, a shimmy, and he just, like, fell into the guard. And, like, Landon was, like, on the ground. I'm like, what is Landon even doing? And he, like, fell into him. I was like, what was Quay Walker expecting? And then
he's gone. And then he's gone.
Yeah, and when you see that replay, and then like he ran through it and he just shot to the end zone, and I was like, oh, great blocking. But then when you watch it back, you know how you said it's like regular running backs like might not score on that play. Like he made it look way easier than it actually is, and that's like it's crazy because everyone's going to be like, oh, he's got an elite line, and the line's great, but like how good he's going to look in this offense with other weapons and just being able to dominate. It's everything we've talked about all off season. Like it's everything we were expecting. And you just see it on the field, and you're like, man, it's different. He's an alien.
I can't believe it's just coming in such a large package. Like you're used to these shifty guys being 190 pounds, right? And it's this mean, cowering looking dude that it looks like, just like on that second touchdown, where it looks like I didn't even see him juke. I didn't see him do a head fake. It just looked like he ran right through the hole, and then you watch the replay and there's a whole juke. He fakes a guy out. I didn't even see, and then explodes like there was no lost movement. There was no lost ground. Like he made it there as fast as any other running back would have made it there if they had ran in a straight line, and he's doing head fakes and getting the guy off his spot. And much to your point, he looks like he's been an Eagle. They said he's the funniest guy on the team. It looks like he has been talking to these guys like, yo, I'm coming to Philly as soon as I can. Just don't say nothing. Like that's what it looked like to me. Is these guys look like they knew they were going to be teammates for the last couple years, right? And they just couldn't say a word. So I'm excited to see to watch it. Like that was just such a foregone conclusion. One of those, okay, boom, game starts. This guy's everything that's been advertised. And let's just watch him go. Let's just watch him go behind this line.
Don't you feel like even how great he played, it's still like a cliffhanger ending? Like I want more. Like I want like a sequel. I want 17 more of them, 16 more of them, whatever. So yeah,
that just goes to show that's part of why I wasn't even stressed out watching this game. It was crazy because I was just like, they're just going to hand the ball to Saquon and everything's going to be all right. Yeah, everything's going to be okay, guys. We're going 15-2. It's okay. It's okay.
It was so funny on this podcast for weeks and months leading up to the season. After we got Saquon, we talked about how A.J. Brown, Devonte Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts are going to open up so many things for Saquon, And here I am after the game thinking, Saquon Barkley is going to open up so many things for A.J., for Devonte, for Dallas Goedert. I mean, it's just – and you could pick your poison each game. I think he even said it. He's like, I mean, granted, he was putting his pride aside here a little bit. He said, I'm not even a top 3, guy you have to worry about on this team. It's like, yeah, you are, but I get your point. Your point is pick your poison. Mm-hmm. We're loaded. You think I'm going off and, I have like 100 yards at halftime and a touchdown. You want to stack the box? Please stack the box. Mm-hmm. Please stack the box. I dare you. And, we talk about who did well, who didn't do well, and their expectations. I want to ask you guys, if you have a player or two, it could be one from offense, one from defense, or whoever comes to your mind. Who's a guy that you pointed out after this game and you were like, kind of like the Reed Blankenship statement that we made, right? Like, he's not going to get the media buzz. He's not going to get the Eagles fan attention of, oh, he was a player of the game. But you're like, man, what a performance under the radar. We needed that guy, and he's not going to get talked about as much, but man, what a performance. What do you guys think, like an under the radar player performance from that game?
You know, one that sticks out that maybe it's just sticking out because we haven't chatted about it a little bit earlier is it's twofold. I've got a give and a take to it. First, I'd like to say the edge play was horrendous. Okay. I didn't see a single speck of life coming from a single edge rusher. Probably. And that's why I haven't lambasted anybody up until this point in the episode, right? But what I will say is something that really flew under the radar and that we're probably going to be fighting about throughout the season is the impact that Jordan Davis is going to have on this defensive line. That Packers offense with their brand new, shiny new free agent running back had what he broke one run, and it felt like the rest of the game they were going nowhere. And anytime Jordan Love dropped back to pass, he was getting pressure right up the middle. Now, a lot of that's going to be it's going to be Jalen Carter, right? A lot of that's going to be Jordan Davis allowing Jalen Carter to get up the field by taking on 2-3 guys and holding his ground and still making it so that the opposing running backs are only going to average 2.5, 3.5 yards per carry. Like, I just took away that Jordan Davis had a fantastic game that people are still going to fight about because it didn't show up on the box score. You're going to have all the box score watchers that can't actually see how the game is being played, and they're going to react to the lack of the stat sheet. And I just think that he's going to be so criminally underrated for what he's doing when it comes to halfway through the season by the end of the season.
Yeah, no, it's a good call. I'm going to give like a kind of an unorthodox answer, I guess you could say. So I'm going to say on defense, I really thought, like Sean, you mentioned that the edge rush wasn't that great, but I thought the activity of the D-line as a whole, like moving Jordan Love off his spot, stopping the run, just rushing things. I mean, the Reed Blankenship interception was a rushed kind of like a little bit earlier than he would have liked to throw or read that play. And there was a couple other plays like that where it felt like people on Twitter were like, Jordan Love he just like, you know, screw the Eagles defense. Jordan Love just missed wide open players. And I just felt like every time he missed someone a little behind him or something like that, it's because he was like moving a little bit. And it was subtle. He was moving up or he was moving over and he just was flushed out of the pocket a lot. And I felt like that kind of effort was unbelievable. And like, because we didn't get many sacks, that people think their edge was terrible and the D-line wasn't that great. We didn't bring him down a lot, but I think the activity and the effort was great. And I think, like I said, it's going to lead to those negative plays and more to come. And I think the field did have a little bit to do with it. So we'll have to see when they play on American soil.
For me, the underrated guys I thought that we can't win this game without them that aren't going to be talked about is, to touch on your point, the D-line. I thought BG played a really, really good game. I think setting the edge, like you said, Sean, so like they couldn't bounce anything, you know, with Jordan Davis getting the pressure up front, taking on 2 linemen. BG does a great job, always has in his career, never heralded for a huge sack guy, but he'll set that edge and make you bounce it back into the teeth of the defense. I thought he did a really good job, and he also drew a holding call to where the Packers had a first down and it came back because he was bearing down on the left tackle, drew a holding call. Little things like that don't show up on the stat sheet. So I thought BG played really well. And then on offense, Smitty, man, Devonte Smith. Yeah. I feel like every catch he made was short of the sticks, but he got skinny, slithered, broke a couple tackles, and made huge 3rd down and 4th down catches where I was like, "Whoo, we needed that, man." Yep. Oh, that's extending the drive. And I just tried to put myself in a Packers fan mode for a second, being like, are you kidding me? Yep. Not him again, not 6 again. Make the tackle. Come on, you got to guard him. You know they're going to 6 here on 3rd down. A.J. Brown had 120 and a touchdown. We talked about Saquon. Jalen Hurts is always going to get that. We talked about how good the O-line was doing. I thought Smitty had a game that you don't win this game without. The clutch catches were just very Jason Avant-ish to me.
Yeah, one of my friends said the same thing. We always send like videos in our group chat, like after Eagles game, just breaking it down. And he was like, Devonte Smith was the best player on the field for us. Like, he was incredible. The timing of the big plays that he was making were they couldn't have been better. It was clutch, everything you want. So yeah, like you said, everyone else popped and stood out and made big plays and had big touchdowns. He was just doing like the dirty work that we needed. Yeah, he was unreal. I loved his game.
Can I go real quick, Sean? Can I do a little something that really got me excited? Like coaches, y'all call me coach. I want to know if I could break down something for y'all real quick that just got me so excited because I went back and watched it. Is that cool? Real quick,
go for it.
All right. So we know about the Saquon wheel route. That was just sex. That was a thing of beauty. He went through the B gap, ran a backside wheel route. That doesn't happen. You don't draw that up. It's stupid. It's amazing. But on the AJ Brown long touchdown, I want y'all to understand the beauty of this. If you could follow at home with me, it started off in a 2x2, but it was a condensed tight split. So Smitty and AJ are on the right side of the line, but they're more of where a tight end would line up, a little bit off tackle, stacked to each other. So you don't really have anybody out. Prior to saying hike, AJ then motions out wide, but he doesn't stop. So as he's going, it's a motion, and then Jalen Hurts hikes it. So what this does is from the initial look of being stacked, condensed in a 2x2, the Packers are 99% going to be in a zone defense on that. You just can't play zone that stacked and condensed across the middle with all that traffic. You can't. Then when AJ motions out, that side of the defense only now goes to a 2x1 man. A 2x1. Safety goes over the middle top, and you got your two corners playing inside, outside. Smitty plays inside. AJ goes outside. And when AJ goes motion, when you hike the ball on motion, as a defense, what you're taught is that guy that's going laterally doesn't have enough to then get up vertically. So you're never going to see a guy really going jet and then straight for a fly or straight for a deep post. It's really rare. So what AJ ran on that, and the beauty of it is he went a little bit of motion, and then he ran a quick speed out. And Jair, who I think is overrated, but still is a very corner that bites on a lot, said, oh, quick shuttle motion to a quick out, that's a staple of every offense. But AJ ran quick shuttle motion from condensed stack to now a 2x1 man-to-man, out and up. Mm-hmm. And Jair bid on it. The safety isn't over the right anymore because it's no longer a zone defense. It's a man defense and a 2x1. Safety's got to occupy the middle of the field because it's a condensed set. And so Hurts can put that ball out there in the middle. I just thought that play design and that concept is chess and not checkers. It's a guy thinking, I'm going to save this for the right time in the game. I'm going to make sure I have Jair Alexander, your most aggressive corner. He's going to identify it, saying, I've seen this look before. I know when you go short motion from a condensed set that it's going to be a quick hit. And we went out and up on it and got the safety out of there. Little things like that where we think, oh, that's just A.J. Brown just beating his man deep. Something we didn't see the last 2 years. He was schemed open specifically on this play. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it made the Packers change their defense at the last second. It got a safety out of there, and it made an aggressive corner check his keys and double move him. Brilliant. Way to go, Kellen Moore. I thought it was amazing.
I love that. It's funny because without as much detail, I did a thread on Twitter about all the big moments in the game, and the tweet about that play, I said, like I use the word twinge, a twinge of motion, like just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
And that's what I saw. Like, and I'm glad you went into detail because I wasn't sure if that's what got him open or not. I just was happy to see motion, and then the guy got the ball off that route, and it was a great route. And it reminded me of the route against Tennessee that he ran 2 years ago, the out and up on Christian Fulton, and Fulton just was like flat-footed and like grabbed him and just got bowled over, and AJ scored. Maybe Kellen got like some ideas like, okay, he ran through this guy on that route. So at worst, if he jumps on this route, he can run right through that thing. And I feel like, it just came together so well. And I'm glad to get even more context. I'm glad I was right to diagnose that, to see that like, okay, there was a little motion there. Did that help at all? Because anytime we see motion now, I'm just like, motion. But like, is it actually helping? Nick Sirianni said last year, we're not just going to do motion for the sake of motion. It's like, yeah, no, dummy. Like, we're going to do motion eyes open. It's like, so obviously you're just saying you don't know what to do with motion, but glad to see it's working out right off the bat week one.
And let me clarify too. I'm assuming they switched to that 2-1, right? I'm assuming the beauty of motion is the defense doesn't have time to all be on the same page communicating on a switch. Right. So maybe they took advantage of that too. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that's why motion is so great.
That play made me think that A.J. Brown is going to go for 2,000 yards receiving. Like, just to have that level of play design. Week 1, just busting it out. You got a grown-ass man up against one of the top, I don't know, still 10-ish or so corners in the league in Zaire, man.
He had to throw in there. Yeah, I think he's overrated, but he's a very smart. So when I have to prove a point, I'll give him credit.
Yeah,
I think he's.
Well, he's not top 3, but he might still be top 10, top 12.
I think he's good.
We focus on this. We focus on the seatbelt all the time. All the time we focus on the seatbelt. And I don't know if Kellen thought about this earlier in the game, but earlier in the game, him and AJ were like face mask to face mask, kind of pushing and shoving, talking trash. And when you start talking trash to somebody, you're extra amped up. You're extra like, ooh, I'm going to be on him on this play. I'm going to be on him on this play. Oh, I see he's about to do an out route. I'm jumping it. Again, I might be giving Kellen way too much credit here, but when you see stuff like that, when you can get in somebody's head and you try to pick on their little over aggressiveness, you never know if that play comes into part because of something like that. So either way, guys, it was schemed open. The scheme got him open, and then your freak athlete did the rest. We didn't see that last year.
Yeah, and I think that like early on, like I'm seeing all this motion, and it's like when you start like a mystery movie or something, like all these things are happening, and you're like, they're just going by the seat of their pants. I feel like as time goes on, Kellen's going to start to really feel out like what works when and how to use certain guys and what's the best thing. I think it's going to come in waves as the season goes on. Like, okay, this is working right now. We're going to ride that. And that's just exciting to me. Like knowing that we have a coach that's got that attention to detail. I feel like he just threw a bunch of shit at the wall week 1. And I feel like there was motion guys going in jet behind Jalen Hurts, like flying out the other end, coming. I hate that. When I see that going against the Eagles as an Eagles fan, and I'm like seeing all that shit, I get so nervous, like, well, great, here comes a big play because we're going to blow something. And now to see it on our side is just so cool and so fun. And so I hope we keep evolving this thing. That's my big thing going into week 2 and rest of the season, obviously, is just like seeing what kind of like counter punches Kellen Moore comes with, because he's got stuff on film now. He's going to start to continue to put stuff on film, and then teams are going to start to guard that stuff. So it's like, what are your counter punches? How are you going to evolve this and continue to work with these guys? Could not be more excited to see that in week 2 and beyond.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that there was a lot of shit being thrown at the wall. One thing that I didn't see sticking, and I like to see a little bit less of, let's not have Grant Calcaterra blocking too much. He was on the field a little too much. Yeah, he was Kellen. He was subpar. We can figure something else out.
You know who does look like a blocker though, and is a blocking tight end, is Jack Stoll, and he's on our practice squad. And I wouldn't be surprised as Jahan Dotson becomes more of a weapon to see less of a need for a Grant Calcaterra receiving tight end if he's not going to be that effective in the receiving game or even featured. And you give that roster spot to a guy that can actually get his nose dirty and block. And I think Goddard obviously is going to always be on there. He can block and catch, so he's always going to have a spot. But you got to wonder, are they going to make that? Because he was brutal with some of those players. I remember there was at least one where he got absolutely cooked, and you wonder, could Jack Stoll be a better option for this team specifically because they have so many receiving options?
Right. I mean, I know Calcaterra is the better receiving option, but if we're going to go to the guy once a game, twice a game, there's not much. You have more to gain by throwing a guy like Stoll in, right? Than keeping Calcaterra in there.
Ball if he needs to, Stoll can catch one ball. So unless you're going to throw to tight ends a lot, it might not be worth having Calcaterra if he can't block. I think that's
all right. Any other points we'd like to bring up before we shut it down, fellas?
I think
did you guys see the offsides where Jalen Hurts got sacked on 3rd down, where the entire Eagles offensive line knew it was offsides? Every fan knew it was offsides, and they just let the play go on and get sacked.
So much anger.
Was that insane to everybody else? Even the broadcast said it.
I forget. I think I vaguely remember, but like
It was a 3rd and 8.
I remember-
3rd and 8, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. 3rd and 8, defensive tackle, neutral zone. So Cam spikes it. Lane stops. Mailata stops. Everybody does. Rashawn Gary comes around the edge and just sacks Hurts. And the entire Eagles, Saquon, everybody's like, okay, first down. And there's no flag anywhere.
Jeez.
I remember thinking if that was anybody other than Jalen Hurts, like everybody would have been flippant. They would have freaked the hell out because that was such a gross like attack on the quarterback. Like I kept waiting for like Mailata to jack the guy up or something like that. I couldn't believe that the stadium, that the team, that the announcers were just like, oh, it appears as if he may have been on sides there and offsides and he just kind of walloped the quarterback. No big deal. Ha ha ha. But if you like smack the guy a little bit too hard after he throw the ball, you get a 15-yard penalty, but you take a completely free shot at my quarterback. And I don't even have one of my tackles to go after the guy. I wanted the bodyguard to come out there and lay the law down on him. I couldn't believe it. You're right. I cannot believe I forgot that. Thank you, Coach.
I just want to throw that in there randomly. That pissed me off so much.
Needed Big Dom to come out and set somebody straight on that.
Right?
Don't get him suspended for the rest of the season. We got 16 more games to go.
We need him.
That's true.
All right, fellas. We'll start with Coach. Final thought.
My final thought, we didn't talk about our opponent leading into week 2, but it's the Atlanta Falcons. Gave up the most pressures in the NFL in week 1. The offensive line looks bad. Kirk Cousins' Achilles does not look right. He is immobile. We are at home on Monday night. If you want to throw away the excuses about Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat in this defensive line, you could throw them away this game. This needs to be the game that they dominate, set the tone. I think the Eagles should feast defensively Monday night. Let's go, Birds.
All right. Yep. Tommy Stakes, final thought.
And I'm gonna follow that up. 3 of Atlanta's offensive linemen are first-round draft picks, and another one is a second-round draft pick. So it's not like they haven't tried to invest in their offensive line. I'm not really sure what went wrong or why, but yeah, they didn't look good at all. Maybe it was T.J. Watt, maybe how great they were, but the Steelers, that is. But that's exactly what I saw. I'm gonna just second that thought. I think it's like I'm expecting to be all over Kirk Cousins. Kind of glad we're playing Atlanta early because I think when they switch to Penix, it's going to be a little bit better of a product just because he has some young legs and he's got a young, fresh mind. And I'm glad we don't have to play, him, to be honest. So Kirk Cousins, man, we should feast on this guy. He's been our home opener 3 years now in a row. And I'm going to be in the building. So come on, you think I'm going to show?
Oh, come on then. You heard that? That's the moneymaker right there. Talking 205 money printer.
If I have to play the end myself, I will. But yeah, Bird's big. I'm thinking, last year it didn't feel, and this is my real final thought. I just wanted to comment on his, so I'm taking 2. Here's my real final thought. Last year, we didn't see when's the last time you saw a full-fledged dominant Eagles win? Everyone plays well. We're so encouraged. It's been a while, right? Let's get that on Monday.
I like it.
All right. So I'm sure we'll be back later on this week to talk a little bit more about the preview. But my final thought, guys, if you're here if you've made it this far, be sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, do all the good stuff. But final thought, go Birds.